Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Dr. Homebrew. We are continuing our romp through California Common with the Inland Empire Brewers. And I'm unwrapping the first beer now with the taking off the rubber bands. And back again are Doug and Jason. Welcome back, boys.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for.
Of course, yeah. We want to talk a little bit as I'm opening. This is Doug's beer, California Common. I don't know if anybody knew that. We want to talk a little bit about your club and sort of the cool stuff you guys have done. I mean, imagine in 40 years, you've probably done a thing or two. What are some cool little club activities that you guys have done that maybe other clubs can steal from you?
Yeah, so one of the big things, since it's our 40th, we started off by looking at the Peak Boots blend. The club actually partnered up with Skyland Ale Works. The club bought what was it, like 15 pounds of the hops. We also got the malts donated by Premier Malt Group. So that way, they could donate as much as possible to them. We collaborated as far as a recipe, went over there. The ladies of Inland Empire Brewers kind of led the brew session and released the beer. That was one of the big events that we did this year. We also did a wort share with Ritual Brewing, where everyone, came on, got some wort, took it back home.
Yeah. Nice.
Which is always fun. One of the things I'm going to be doing here, probably the end of the month, is we're going to do a smaller wort share. Do like a 30, 40 gallon wort share. Everyone's going to take their stuff on home. Just, small minimum fee to participate in it. And basically, we're going to make it an internal competition once again. And winner gets their $20 back. And then the rest of the proceeds, the winner gets to choose what charity it's going to go to. So that's one of the big things that we like to do is give back to the community.
Cool.
So, that's a really great idea, because that, even if you just give people a short list or something, that's a great prize to give people the power to direct some money to a good charitable contribution.
Exactly. It's a fun little thing. But our club actually typically participates in a solid 5 charity events through a year, does quite a few miscellaneous events. Most recently we did All Points Brewing, which benefited it was for their anniversary, actually benefited the Mary S. Roberts Pet Adoption Center. So us and their club went out there, we served our beer, and made a good chunk of money for Mary S. Roberts, which is one of the local pet adoption centers.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think a number of clubs.
We have like 2 rescue dogs, like 2 rescue cats. It's pretty much the only way we get animals essentially is by either someone gives them to us or a rescue.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
The way. That's the preferred way.
For sure.
Yeah, well, it sounds great, man. Hopefully you guys are around for another 40 years. I think that'd be excellent. They can wheel you guys out, in 30, 40 years.
Oh yeah, exactly. Hook in that wheelchair.
I like clubs that reinvent themselves, and you guys mentioned on the previous show that you like involving newer brewers, all levels of experience, bringing people up, helping educate people, and that's what you've got to do to help keep a club alive and active. If it just turns into an old guys drinking club, it's not going to last forever.
No.
Well, and that's what a lot, I think, used to be. And I think a lot of people now starting brew clubs, and I mean, maybe your guys, maybe the Inland Empire club has seen this ebb and flow potentially a little bit, but I know Doe's did for a while too. It's just, it happens inevitably. But I think a lot of newer kids starting homebrew clubs, I think it's a different level. I think homebrew clubs maybe started as like just a drinking club kind of thing. Like, oh, maybe we should talk about shit. But now there's so much push.
Another great thing that we do internally is every single month we all bring a styles of the month, and they're all blind tasted, and the feedback is without question unfiltered, and it's not sugar coated. So if you have a problem with your beer, we call it out, we tell you what the problems are, and then someone can take your side and say, hey, here's how you can fix it. So it's a great environment to learn from people who've been there and done that before you.
Yeah.
Now, you guys QC your beers before you pour it like an event?
Yes. Oh yes. Oh yeah.
That's there's
Jason
clubs, there's clubs that just like anybody that wants to brew, we know it can be a pain. We'll pour whatever anybody brews, And there's clubs that will be like, no, we're going to make sure we QC everything beforehand, and we're only pouring stuff that's good. And I'm definitely in the latter camp, and I'm glad you guys are too.
In January, I pulled my own beer. It just wasn't tasting like it was tasting at the house. And I said, nope, something's wrong. Let's get rid of it.
Yeah, I've done that. And if I've gotten that feedback, and I've done that, and I've had my beer, kind of get DQ'd from getting poured. And you know what? You have to. It's a hobby. You got to appreciate honesty, and it shouldn't. It can't be your entire identity can't get invested in one keg of beer.
Yeah, you can't be that serious.
Yeah, and if one
as
keg
soon as
isn't
you
great,
let it, as soon as you let it start getting super serious, where your feelings are hurt, like it's time to maybe step back for a second.
Or realize that being super serious means you better be serious about making good beer, and accept the fact that if you get your beer DQ'd from getting poured, you know what? Just try again. Do better next time.
Yeah, do better.
Yeah,
jerks. But anyway, let's talk about this beer that we have in front of us, which is Doug's California Common. Now, Doug, who picks the style? Or Jason, you're the president. Who picked the style for this?
So it's actually the California Homebrewers Association that actually picked this style.
Okay.
So because they pick a style every single year and then decide, let all the local clubs know, we all brew it, and then bragging rights competition.
Bragging rights competition, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder if Anchor Steam going under had anything to do with that.
Yes, it did.
I'm sure there's no connection.
No, yeah, probably not. And then when they come back online, it'll be make your own yogurt at home in celebration of Chobani buying. Anyway, Doug, have you made a California Common before, or was this your first time?
Not only have I not made it before, but the last time I tasted an Anchor Steam or any California Common would have been in college in the 90s. So I was completely going in blind. So my recipe design was an interpretation from the Brewing Classic Styles book.
That dog's dinner of a book. That's funny. I'll be honest, since you're being honest, I don't even like Anchor Steam that much. Because it tastes weird. It doesn't travel well to me. It doesn't store well. It just always tastes off, no matter what. I mean, it's very rare that I like an Anchor Steam Cal Common like steam beer.
Well, there's a reason I haven't drank one in 20 years.
Yeah, it's just sort of like, but like Liberty Ale is always good, and like they make good beer, but I think the style is just whatever. Anyway, now we're rambling. Okay.
You've seen how
they say brew the style though. You step up and you brew it.
That's right. That's what you do.
Yep.
Cooper.
All right.
What's up?
Yeah. And I want to thank Doug for helping to coordinate this whole shebang. We've had a lot of back and forth emails on this, and with Jason, the president of the club, we've had a lot of work that went into this, and thanks for hanging in with us on all the changes. And we finally got it together, and we're here. So thank you for that. And it's really fun to chat with so many people from your club. And I'm sure we'll see you around different places too. So we opened your beer, and I'm sorry, your beer's terrible. No, we opened your beer, had a nice little hiss upon opening, appropriate fill, all of that. In the nose, I'm getting a pleasant maltiness with a low toast, some biscuit and bread crusts evident, medium low resiny, almost citrusy hop, medium very low. The citrusy hop is kind of medium, very low caramel, almost none. Not getting any DMS or diacetyl. Like again, it's clean, like a lot of others we've tasted. No obvious esters. It does have that kind of lager ale-like play to the fermentation character. No obvious alcohol poking out. There's just a lot of malt and hop aromas here. And if there were a little bit, it wouldn't it'd have to struggle to be noticed. So the beer, your aroma is very inviting. I gave it an 8 out of 12. Very rich appearance-wise. It's very rich color. It's pretty much all the way to copper with deep reddish orange highlights. It is clear, and it has a soft-looking creamy beige head that persists fairly well. mostly finer bubble, some larger. Yeah. Why did I think I was just a little, it can end at light copper, but going all the way to copper, I guess I just knocked a point off for, it's a little dark. But it's not brown, so you're on the edge, but maybe I'm being mean. Maybe I should have gone 2.5. I don't know. In the flavor, it's got a bold maltiness combining with a slight, more modern seeming resiny and lightly citrusy hop character in there. Finish is semi-dry. The ferment seems very clean, ale lager hybrid like, and no DMS or diacetyl or other obvious flaws. The bitterness is pretty low and out of the way. Should actually be a little higher for the style. The balance, I would say, is to the malt. There's something, I think it's just the bitterness being out of the way, that it's, and maybe this goes into the body too, but it's, it seems like a little less, even though it's like darker and on the, richer end for color, it seems a little lighter and almost like watery underneath. It's not watery like seltzer water with a little malt mixed in, but it's, in the mouthfeel, it comes in as kind of a medium light bodied beer. And, the carbonation is pretty substantial too. So that should be driving it's driving a lot of those flavors and stuff into your nose, and that aroma that's very prominent. Not creamy or astringent. And there's no obvious alcohol warmth here either. It's actually fairly smoothly drinkable. So I landed at a 14 out of 20 on flavor and a 3 out of 5 for mouthfeel. Smooth. So overall, the smoothness in the beer is generally not going to be considered an issue. You want like a beer to be smooth and drinkable. JP's talking about how he doesn't care for anchor steam. This is a smooth and drinkable beer.
The only reason I don't is because
when it's not fresh, you don't want to.
Yeah.
It doesn't age or travel well. Yeah. So, I think that this style should just be a bit edgier and a little more gnarly and a little more biting. So like my only issues with the beer are that it's just, a little slightly bit off of where it should be for style. It's a little too dark. It's a little, more richly malty and not kind of balanced with that bitterness underneath that would support that. Still, it's just really pleasant and clean, easy to quaff beer with the bold maltiness and some nice resiny hops, adding a bit of interesting taste to it. That it can have some resiny, but it doesn't have that kind of woody and minty element that I want. So I'm wondering what hops you use. We'll get to that. Maybe it is Northern Brewer. I don't know. It doesn't, and you don't have to use Northern Brewer. You can use any kind of rustic. You can use cluster. You can use any kind of rustic if you can find it. Any kind of rustic American hop that would be around 100, 150 years ago. But yeah, I think adding a bit more bitterness to this, and possibly also a little more mineral, like a little more sulfate under there to make it kind of grabby a little more underneath and get rid of that kind of too smooth feeling underneath. Will make this beer shine with the character it needs to better meet the style. And I would also kind of lighten up the malt, just whatever the darkest malts are in here, lighten them up a bit. That's going to get that out of the way and let what's in there shine through. But let's talk about your hop, and you might want to switch that up too. But or get if it is the appropriate hop for the style, find a fresher version of it that's going to have a little more character to push through. So I gave 7 out of 10 for overall impression. I went on for a while there, but it lands at a 34 for me, which is still very good. There's no flaws in the beer. It's just mostly balance issues and style adjustments that you would make, but a very good first attempt at the Cal Common style. It's maybe more like an amber ale, you could say. I don't know if it would do super well there, but it could play it more as an American amber ale, but although it's not super fruity. So I don't know, you could play with it and turn it different directions, however you like it. And, but thank you for sharing. And thanks again for coordinating.
So Coop is gnarly in the overall impression in the guidelines, or is that more like in the flavor or mouthfeel?
It's a technical term for a beer that should just be like throw you for a loop. You take a sip and you're like, whoa, what's that?
Gotta, you never heard of the get a glass of nar? You never heard that term before? Yeah, I got
the
like
nar,
a big glass of nar.
but that should
Yeah.
be in the style guidelines somewhere, right?
I don't think it is. When I am promoted to that role, I'll put them all over the place.
Just like
This
the
beer is
hazies ought to
gnarly,
be
dude.
called, they ought to be rad.
Was it low gnarly? Was it medium gnarly, or was it high gnarly?
Soft gnarliness.
It's ultra gnar, man.
All right, Shar. Speaking of gnarly,
Yeah, exactly. So, this is another show. So, Doug, are you in a homebrew club?
I am.
waka waka.
And that would be the Inland Empire Brewers.
Yes, and I owe the Inland Empire Brewers a lot of gratitude for the mentorship. I've only been brewing for about 3 years, and I joined up with them about 2 years ago, and I would say a lot of my growth is a direct line to the guidance and the examples that I've seen in there.
3 years.
Awesome.
I don't know, man. I just imagine you've been at this for like 25 years. You have this aura about you of like a grizzled veteran hobbyist, whatever it is. You also
I've brewed a lot in 3 years. I just did my 118th batch today.
Wow. It looks like you dove in, and you've got your kegerator back there, and you've got
awesome.
your malt containers and everything. And
yeah.
The big
Doug looks like he's been doing this for 25 years, but he's really 30. So, it's just, this is how home brewing gets you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Dude, you got if people that are not watching this on YouTube, you got your Vittles vaults of grain behind you in like a storage unit, which is awesome. Like this wood thing you built. You've got some paper towels hanging off like a rack. Oh man, you got like a keg, and you got all kinds of stuff. You got gas down there. Yeah, you look like you've been doing this for more than 3 years. You're also super. I wish I was that organized. I think if anyone could see this, you would wish you were as organized as Doug is. Man, you are. And that kegerator. Yeah, you got that old fridge, multiple taps. That's doing it right, man.
Yep. Good work. All right,
took me
do it.
10 years
Excellent.
to get to that point.
So, I appreciate you sending this beer in. I enjoyed it a lot. Bottle inspection. It's a bottle, medium fill, good hiss. And always nice to have a hiss when you open that up. Lets you know there's some carbonation in there. Aroma, I get a low malt aroma. Sort of a dark toast without being roast, if that makes sense. Not burned toast either, but there's a range of toasting, and that's say I'll get darker toast. It's enjoyable. Low woody hop aroma. No esters, no off aromas. Give it 8 out of 12 for aroma. Appearance 3 out of 3. The color is light copper. It's crystal clear, which is always fantastic. Head is low, unless it's a hazy IPA, but we're not doing hazy IPA. Head is low, but it's persistent. Tiny white and ivory bubbles. Again, 3 out of 3. The flavor, and I largely, sort of echo what Cooper said. The flavor is malt oriented from the beginning. Medium high toast with low caramel. So I like that. The toast kind of it didn't push right up against the edge of roasty, but the toast, that sort of toasted malt character is definitely present and is fantastic. The hop flavor is low. You get that kind of woody character to it. Probably Northern Brewer. Low bitterness. This is definitely a malt focused beer. I'd say the bitterness is low. In mid palate, it comes up to almost balance, but I'd say this is pretty much malt dominated all the way through. Malt flavor. I also get, and I like this, and I'll be curious to hear your malt bill. I get almost a torrefied wheat, torrefied rice character, kind of in the finish, which I like. If like sugar smacks without the sugar, which I'm sure, anybody under 40 listening to this has no idea what I'm talking about. But that type of torrefied grain character, I think it worked. If you used that, I think it worked really well. If you didn't, then I'm just tasting something. But I enjoyed it. It's well attenuated. Balance is, toward malt. Finish is balanced toward malt, and it's very long. Gave that 14 out of 20. Mouthfeel 4 out of 5. Body's medium. Carbonation's medium low, a little bit less than I would have wanted. No warming, it's more creamy than astringent. Again, I won't belabor the point about packaging. I ultimately just knocked at a point for being less carbonated than maybe would be ideal, but it wasn't so low that it had knock-on effects in other parts of the beer. Sometimes if it's very low carbonation, you end up with aroma issues because there's not the carbon dioxide to lift the aroma up. You end up some flavor issues. That wasn't the case here. It was, to me, just a little bit lower than might be wanted, but it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't drastically low. Again, 4 out of 5 for mouthfeel. Overall impression, 7 out of 10 for a total of 36. I like this beer. I think it can be really hard to clone for reasons we've described. I think it can end up being, like JP was saying, if you get much outside the city limits of San Francisco, it tends to oxidize quickly and not be fantastic. And I think that can lead people. I don't think that happened to you, but I think it can happen when people try to clone this beer. It's like when Australians try to clone Sierra Nevada and it comes out really caramelly and weird, and not like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale we have at home, because by the time it gets to Australia, it's old and it's oxidized, it's hot and it's whatever. And I think that can happen to Anchor Steam, and people get Anchor Steam in LA, Orange County. I was saying in the last show, I used to go to this place in Long Beach and drink Anchor Steam. And I had one impression of how it tasted. And then I had it in San Francisco and realized, wait a second, this is much different when it's fresh. So, having said all that, I think this is a tasty beer. Again, if I were just enjoying this from a sensory standpoint, I'd drink this all day long. I think it's missing some of the hop bitterness that this should have. And pull up the guidelines again. I think there's a pronounced hop bitterness, and there's bitterness here. But I think when you brew this next time, I'd bump up the bittering hops by maybe at 30% and see what happens. Because the malt flavor is great, but it really needs a little more bitter. And Cooper was talking about this, as I recall.
Yep.
It needs a little more bitterness in the backbone to really kind of play off of that malt. But again, 36 is on the high end of very good. There's no off flavors that I could detect, no off aromas. Your process is fantastic. Thanks for sharing, and I want to hear all about this.
Yeah, I echo kind of a lot. Which is sort of what I do. I'd probably give it a 35, 36, maybe pushing 37. It is very good. It is maybe a little too heavy in the malt. I see what you were saying, Shar, about that kind of like corn cereal kind of thing or whatever. And I get that too. And I do like it also, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe that with the caramel malt doesn't work super well. It seems like a bigger version of the style. I like it too. I think it's great. So I'm looking forward to hearing the recipe, Doug, if you want to throw that out to us.
Sure. So like I said, props to Classic Brewing Styles for the recipe. They had a extract version that I modified and interpreted. So it's 77.8% two-row, 7% Munich 1, 2.2% Victory malt. I did 5% C20, 5% C60 to give me a C40 blend. And then I put in 1%. This is probably where all the darkness is, because this definitely has a brewer's fingerprint on it, because I tend to always lean a little less bitter than everyone else and a little more malty than everyone else. That's kind of what I like. So it's got a full percentage of English chocolate.
Okay.
Wow. Now that you say chocolate, I didn't get chocolate until you said the word, and then I'm like, wow, yeah, it's not a huge amount, but it's in there. It's noticeable.
1%.
Yeah, and I think it plays well with that crystal blend.
Yeah, wow.
All Northern Brewers, about 40 IBUs with 26% in the 60, and then in the, I don't have if it's 15 minutes or 30 minutes, but I had 9.7% or 9.7 IBUs in the mid range, and then at the end I put another 2.9 in.
I kept getting a resiny thing last night, but as I'm drinking it tonight, I'm not. And it was like the fourth beer I had sat down, thoroughly judged, and so I'm not getting as much of that. What I thought was a resiny.
It It does have the YLP 810, the San Francisco lager yeast. I did put a dropper of the AALCD in there to ward off the evil spirits.
Yeah.
You mentioned water chemistry, so it's about a 1-to-3 chloride to sulfate ratio. I have my sulfates are 141 in the target, and it's 57 in the chloride. I kept the calcium under right at 138, so I kept it below that 150 mark. To me, when I tasted it, I felt like it was almost pushing minerally. Not quite there, but so I'm glad I kept the calcium where I did. So that's kind of standard lager. 3 days is all it took at 15C to get to 110.25, and then I bumped it up to 17C and ran it for 10 days and cold crashed for 10 days.
Well,
Sounds
nicely
good
done.
to me. Any notes, Brian's?
I should come up a point just because I was mean on the appearance and
There you go.
wrong on the hop. So
There you go. See, Doug, if you just stare at these guys long enough, they fold like a cheap suit.
just 1 point, jeez.
Well, for now.
And because JP liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought
Well,
that 1%
JP
of
liked it, and
chocolate was
JP
a
doesn't
bold
like the
move.
style, so that's a good idea of my
I'm not a giant fan
my
of the
brewer's
style.
fingerprint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Doug, do you have any questions for the guys?
No, I said this before we got. I just wanted to thank you guys as a team, because you guys have been very educational for me in my education process. I'm very much a deep diver. If I get into something, I like to deep dive and learn as much as I can. And your show has really provided me a lot of really valuable information. Cooper was really helpful I just recently got my BJCP certification. Cooper was
Cool.
really helpful in that, and your show was something that that was definitely helped me kind of just learn how to talk about beers and how to look at them.
Oh, I appreciate that, Doug.
You went
Kinda.
all the way
Doug.
back to
Congratulations.
episode 1 with Lee and myself, and yeah, a lot like almost a dozen years ago now. It's like crazy to
Yeah.
think.
That's cool, man. Good to hear it. I appreciate that. Congrats on getting your certification. It's not easy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, we are going to take a break. Cooper, who we're coming back with? Can't hear you.
Ricky, don't lose that number.
Ricky. I'm sure he loves that joke. All right, we'll be right back with Ricky here on Dr. Homebrew. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for sticking around, everybody. We are joined by Ricky, of course, I don't know if we have to say it by now, of the Inland Empire Brewers Homebrewing Club. Ricky, thanks for the beer and welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here.
And you're canning too. Look at you. Very nice.
Thanks.
I appreciate it. And your label is taped on in a plastic bag. It's like you're a professional. It's like you know what to do. Appreciate that very much. Okay, well, let's just get right into it then. Shar,
Yes.
hit him up. Shar, let's
All
go.
right. So Ricky, this is kind of funny. So you sent multiple cans. I judged one last night and I kept one for today. And the one I judged last night was just like a normal can from the grocery store or something. It was all kind of firm and rigid until I popped it. The other can was really kind of soft and kind of, I could tell there's a lot of liquid in there, but I thought it was kind of empty because it was
Same.
kind of pliable and mushy. And
That's
I opened
me.
it up.
You're describing my middle section.
Yeah.
Water, mushy.
Yeah, I should be doing some ASMR, OnlyFans. It was
No.
pliable and mushy. Yeah, no, that's just gross. So I saved that one for tonight and opened that up about 45 minutes ago. And it was weird. It was almost filled up to the top, but for some reason, some pressure must have gotten out somewhere because it had has zero carbonation. This is not the one that I judged. This is just one that kind of drink along with the score sheet that I did last night. But just as kind of an FYI, it's interesting because like the bottle inspection is going NA, it's a can, but that's kind of I don't know, maybe that's a thing I haven't experienced before. That maybe that's kind of like the tell, like if you open the bottle and there's no hiss, if you squeeze the can and it's kind of mushy, maybe that's the lack of carbonation in that can or something. But it was kind of interesting. But overall, I'm not meaning to crap on your beer. I liked your beer. It's just the second can that I saved this for today for that reason. I thought there might be something wrong, and it's just the carbonation just kind of leaked out of that one. Aroma, so it's low toasty malt, not really much hop aroma. Although is this one, as I said earlier, I judged the one last night probably colder than I should have. This one's warmed up some, and I get definitely a little more hop aroma. I wouldn't say no, I'd say low, woody Northern Brewer character hop aroma from this. No esters, no off aromas. I'm going to come up a point on the fly because that's the joy of live homebrew judging, to give you an 8 out of 12 on the aroma. So that's, even though it may not be carbonated all the way, I can definitely get the aroma. And I think if this had been carbonated, I get probably more like a medium, woody hop aroma from this.
Yeah.
Appearance 3 out of 3. It's very light copper. It's crystal clear. Again, I can see all you guys on Zoom through this glass, even though you on the podcast can't see me at all, and I got my background blurred, so all you can see is kind of this blurry nonsense that I'm waving in front of the camera. It's very low but persistent head. Not on this one, but the one I judged last night. Very fine ivory / off-white bubbles, 3 out of 3 flavor. Initially, the flavor is balanced toward malt. It's toasty, and I would call that more of not a dark toast or a burnt toast, but it's like a solid medium toast, which I like. Low caramel, mid palate, bitterness comes up to balance. It's well attenuated. The finish is moderate length, balanced toward malt. It's interesting. I get a little, and I get it in this one too. It's at a very low level. I get like a very low chalky flavor in the very finish. And later on, I'll be curious if you adjusted your water or something, or if maybe that's just some weird idiosyncratic thing that I'm tasting that maybe is reminding me of something else. I also got, I don't get it in this one. In the other can, as it warmed up, I got what I perceived as a little bit of oxidation, but I really don't think that's the case. I think that I was mistaking. There's definitely caramel. I'm going to come up a point again on this. So from the can, in the finish, JP's kind of
you just stare at them long enough, man, and they
Yeah, for those of you that are not looking at the YouTube, Doug is not, or Doug.
They don't need it.
It's still the caption is Doug. Ricky is he's just got that deer in the headlights look. He's not staring me down. Yeah. But I'm just, for whatever reason, like, again, I was judging these at like midnight last night too. Not really the ideal time or mindset to be judging beer, but you do what you got to do. And I'm not. I think I talked myself into a little bit of cardboard that really isn't there. And if it's going to be in anything, it's going to be in the beer that lost some pressure. There might have been a little leak or something.
I think when a beer is flat, it reminds you of stale beer because it's just flat and it doesn't have that prickle, doesn't have that bubbliness, and it just like lays. It gets flabby and just lays there.
It was the one that was carbonated that I got that from last night. Okay. Not the flat one. But I'm thinking if it really was oxidized and if this thing lost pressure, the one that's flat is going to be the one that's oxidized because oxygen might get in. That's what I'm saying. If I'm not getting in this, it doesn't exist.
Mm.
So that's 13 out of 20 for flavor. Mouthfeel, 3 out of 5. Body was medium. Carbonation was medium low. Well, why did I give this 3 out of 5? Again, this is why you don't judge these beers at midnight the day before the show.
Yeah, it's typically why home brewing competitions are in the beginning of the day.
Yes, why it's like a Saturday morning. Well, you can't drink all day if you don't start at 10 a.m. But it's also just look at my body medium, carbonation's medium low, which is fine. even on the carbonated one. It's warm. There's some warming, which is fine. It's also the last one that I judged last night. So of course it's going to feel warming because I, judged like 5 beers at starting like 11 p.m. and I hadn't really had much to eat all day. So of course it's going to be warming at midnight. Neither creamy nor astringent. This should be at least a 4. I'm going to come up again. Yeah, Ricky, I don't want to shortchange you because you happen to end up in, not pole position, but in, the last one that I judged, last night. That's not fair to you. So
there you go.
4 to 5 for mouthfeel. Overall impression, I give that a 7 for a total of 35. I like this beer. Thanks for sharing. I got a little bit in this one. Maybe I talked myself into it. I got a little bit of chalk in the finish. And, if you're adjusting your water with chalk, that's something to think about. I know when you get to the Inland Empire, San Diego and all the LA in general, the water can be problematic and can require a lot of adjusting. And that's, you do what you got to do when it comes to your brewing water. I'll be curious to hear if you treated your water with that. Ordinarily if I taste like water adjustment, it's usually like rock licking type flavors.
Yeah.
This is unusual that it's a little chalky. Again, it might just be me, but if you're adjusting your water that way, that just it might be something to think about how you put that in. How you avoid having too much. It's not super soluble. So there's some aspects of like adding chalk that can be a little problematic. I think that maybe a little more hopping would be welcome. I have a note here that maybe the hop level is, from a bitterness standpoint, a little more hopping might be welcome. Maybe a little more flavor. But yeah, overall 35, I give this 35 out of 50. Which is squarely in the very good category. And
right.
Thanks for sharing. And I'm looking forward to Coop's looking a little bit perplexed again. Sometimes he looks at me or looks at something on YouTube, and I'm just thinking, oh God, what's Cooper?
Don't worry about him.
No, I'm just trying to capture your score because I'm trying to tally these as we go.
I did some adjusting on the fly.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry.
35.
It's funny you mentioned the can chart because it jogged something in my memory. I went back to our text message thread and another one of Ricky's cans leaked in that shipment.
Oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like there's no beer anywhere because I think whoever packaged it, if I remember correctly, there was like the compressed paper shipper boxes, and then these were on top of that. So I think that absorbed the beer.
Yeah.
Which is kind of neat because like this can, it's like in elementary school where you like blow out the egg, you make the pinhole, you blow it out, so it's like a hollow eggshell.
The vinegar and the egg and all that. Yeah.
So in my comment was like, there's a little tiny bit of beer left in it, but it's perfectly sealed. I couldn't figure it out, and I tipped the beer over trying to find the source of the leak. Couldn't find it. This is magically.
It's probably good for Ricky. It's probably good for you to know that. I have not homebrew canned, so I don't know anything about that process, but it's probably good for you to know that for some reason you're maybe getting some leakage in your canning process.
Yeah.
And whatever you need to do to fix that, you would know better than I would, but it's probably just good for you to know that there's some of that happening.
Yeah, I worried a little bit just because I did overcarb these beers a little bit. This was these were the tightest cans I've ever sent, to be honest with you. And I did kind of worry how they would do in travel on this one, because the ones in the fridge right now are still really tight. And that's because I did carb it up pretty high. So they may have just been overpressured. So
yeah, maybe that, and maybe it was on an airplane or something, or they went over the grapevine or something, and maybe that pressure differential was just enough to open up a little pathway for some of that to get out. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's not a thing. I'm not familiar with canning other than in an academic sense, but it's just good for you.
Post-consumer,
it's good for you. It's good to know that. I mean, this was the second can was totally flat, but that you had carved it up real high. So thanks for doing that. It's just something happened on the way.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Coop.
Okay. Well, my can was fine. I ended up with the shortest straw and got the one can because we lost one, and that's fine because I judged it this afternoon just before the show. So instead of doing it fifth last night, it was first tonight. So I got a
Probably for the
clearer
best that you were in pole position today.
impression of it, and yeah. Um, can yes, appropriate sized cap, no. Fill level, can't see it. Label removal.
He's
The label is
him for appropriate size cap. And no,
label's really
point.
stuck. Yeah, it was a tight can for sure. Aroma wise, it does have a moderate toasty malt up front with a modest earthy woody hop in the nose. Some light fruitiness in the mix too. It's appropriate, just fine. Not a high level. It's clean. There's no DMS or diacetyl. Only a faint caramel. But I find it to have a good balance overall between the hops and the malt. I really like the way this one's playing because I can get both of them. And then as I report it, I got on the first whiff, I got a little perfumey floral thing off the top of it. But it can have a little floral in there too, and that's fine. The appearance, it's a deep amber color with an orangey hue to it. Excellent clarity. I gave it 9 out of 12 for aroma.
Nice.
Excellent clarity, pours with a fairly large off-white head, fine bubbles. I found it to be just a bit chunky. It looked like proteinaceous and like kind of had varying, not striations, but just, the foam had a little chunky character to it. So just for fun, I knocked it down a point for that. Just to be mean.
No, you'll come back
Keep
up.
doing that. Yeah. But the head persisted pretty well. Overall, it's a fine looking beer, but the head looked weird to me. I won't come up a point. Flavor wise, that's fairly boldly malty with notes of dark bread crust and toast. That's at a medium high level. Clean low temp ale ferment profile. The balance is fairly even to me because it does have a substantial hop there. It's just slightly to the malt, though, I would say. The bitterness is kind of medium low. Hops are woody and rustic seeming and medium, lingering into the aftertaste with the malt. Clean, no serious issues. I think that with the bitterness being just slightly lower than I might want it, it does come across. It's maybe a little more refreshing, like comparing it to say Doug's beer, where that's a lot to take. This one just it's a little more like water than syrup, and that's getting into mouthfeel again. It's easier to quaff. But yeah, I find the beer to be medium bodied. It's not light bodied. There's no warmth or astringency noted. And it's also not really creamy. But it just goes down pretty smooth. Medium high carbonation helps drive everything. Carbonation level was great. I thought I gave it a 4 out of 5 for mouthfeel, and I was at 14 on a flavor. So yeah, overall impression, if you handed me this beer and said, here's an Anchor Steam, without having the Anchor Steam next to it for comparison and doing a side by side, I'd say pretty darn close. This is I feel like the bitterness needs to come up just a touch to give it a bit more structure underneath and to balance the pretty big malt that's there. But it's the right kind of hop for it. For sure, very woody and old school. Maybe not quite as minty as hoped, but I don't always get the minty thing in Northern Brewer. Some people might get it more easily than me, but I don't pick it up as mint really. But yeah, woody and how do you smell rustic? Yeah, I don't know. But
rustic interpretation.
The head, maybe it seems like there might be something very proteinaceous in here. If there's some wheat or something else, I can't guess. I won't guess, but maybe a little bit of a protein rest or a little longer protein rest if you already do one is going to help you out there. But I gave 8 out of 10 for overall impression and landed on a 37. So that's a very, very good, bordering on excellent beer to me. And just a couple minor adjustments and you'd be off to the races with this one. It's really good. Well, in the sample I got, very good canning, and yeah, kind of everything's playing nicely
Yeah.
for me. So,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my can was fine too. Not super highly carbonated, but I think, fine for the style. I could always use a little bit more. But yeah, I agree with what Cooper said. It's a light bodied version. It's a little brighter than say Doug's. But yeah, I think 35 would be totally respectable, totally appropriate score for this beer. It's a very good homebrewed version of the style. Ricky, do you have? Oh no, let's do your recipe real fast, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. So I'll touch on my recipe. I went 88% Munton's Pilsner, and then I went 8% Caramel 60, and I went 3.6% of Mecca Grades Graham and Cocoa, which is their Opal 22, and then just 1% for color, pretty much of the chocolate malt. I definitely changed up the hops though. I didn't have the Northern Brewer hops on hand, so I actually went with the Chinook at the 60-minute, and then for the 15-minute, I actually went Strata.
okay.
Yep.
All right, did change some
My
stuff.
favorite hop.
Yeah.
My favorite hop. I try to throw it in everything.
As I re-smelled it, it had that a perfumey floral thing, but I'm not getting what is Strata supposed to have again?
So I was trying to get kind of more like the dankish flavors out of it.
Dankish, yeah. The dank can play like a little bit of a woodiness maybe here.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get out.
And that it's not like a really tropical or a really citrusy hop, but it's that's interesting what you did. Wow.
Yeah, we did a show a long time ago, maybe like 4 years ago, where we had like a couple of commercial beers that were like Strata only. And as I recall, we didn't like the Strata by itself, but it's one of those that really is a great blending hop, kind of like Cashmere or something. Like it doesn't. There's very few beers that can handle that on its own, but as a blend, it's a fantastic blend hop.
Yep, absolutely. And then when you touch on the water, I start with RO water, and then I build it up. I went 2-to-1 on the gypsum to calcium on this one.
Okay.
And then I went with Lallemand Nova Lager for the yeast.
The Lallemand what?
What's that?
The Lallemand what?
The Nova Lager.
Oh, okay.
Nova Lager. Yeah, I think I don't know with I wonder how yeast selection and hops work together in a recipe like this. I wonder if that might be, I appreciate like kind of the hop, switcheroo a little bit, but I wonder if, I don't know. I wonder if, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
No, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Where there is always an interplay between your yeast and your hops.
And I think with this style specifically too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean like biotransformation. I just mean like the flavors that yeast throw versus the flavors that hops have.
Right.
And yeah, you're having the Lallemand yeast, is that more of an ale or a lager, or is that intended to be a hybrid?
So it's an ale lager hybrid.
Okay.
So that it could be, I did it at 65 degrees.
Okay.
Right.
I'm just not, that's a dry yeast, right?
Yes, correct.
And I didn't notice, like we've talked on numerous occasions, dry yeast in 2024 is just fine. There's nothing wrong with dry yeast. In fact, you can maybe even pitch more yeast dry than with a liquid yeast sometimes. But I'm just not familiar with the flavor profile of that. And yeah, I think JP's point is, maybe we're just not familiar with how a Lallemand, hybrid yeast tastes with certain hops, especially like a modern hop like Strata.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it might have thrown something that flavor profile wise. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not as well versed on my vocabulary as I probably should be to make this assertion, but I feel like there might be something in the flavor with regards to that. With there's a reason why they're old school hops. I know you didn't have any, and blah blah blah. But Cooper, you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I like how it plays. It's a good trick, as I said before, and the dank versus it doesn't come across as super dank to me. and it doesn't.
No, but there is a yeah.
But as I re-smelled it, I had that perfumey floral again. But
I think what it is, I think for this beer, I think it's confusing.
I'm having trouble with it. Yeah, I'm confused a little bit.
Yeah, because there's a blend of old school and new school coming together to make something that's not as good as either one of them separately, I think.
But the other was Chinook, right? And I usually get like a grapefruity thing out of that, but I'm not
Yeah.
getting maybe some resin, a little bit of
Yeah,
resin.
I get another. I think about the Chinook. I get a little piney, which I think works well with in a northern brewer type of family.
It's
That's
wood,
fine, yeah.
Yeah,
wood and wood adjacent.
wood adjacent, yes. But yeah, it's interesting, and I'm wondering if maybe the like that very low chalky character was maybe like one of the hops, or maybe like a fermentation byproduct or something. It's interesting. I respect the experiment, but this is this is also one of those beers where, I mean, California Common is, for better or worse, so defined by one commercial example that there's people make California Common all the time. Well, not all the time. They should make it more than they do, but they will kind of play with some of the ingredients and put their own spin on that. And I think it's difficult in competition, or difficult in any judging situation, even if you make a great beer that fits the guidelines for California Common, and it's different from Anchor Steam. Just everyone's unconscious or conscious bias is a California Common ought to taste, smell, be like Anchor Steam.
That's
and if you go further from that, it can be difficult.
It's very challenging. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I think we've beaten that horse to death.
Yep.
You have
Okay.
questions?
What was that?
Do you have any questions or?
No questions. I just think that Brian S., man, you got an awesome like baseball-esque voice. I think that's awesome.
Well, thank you so much. I
No.
moonlighted as a wedding DJ in the early 90s for about 3 years. So maybe I honed my craft at that point. I did some radio commercials in LA in the early 90s too. So there you go.
There you go. All before Blue Chew came about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate all the feedback.
Thank you, Ricky.
Thanks for
I
being here,
appreciate
I'm
you
sure.
sharing your beer.
Yeah, absolutely, Ricky.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. And thanks, again, to everybody who packed the beers in. That was awesome.
Yeah.
We're taking one more break. We're coming back with one more beer. Correct, Coop?
Right, but
Make sure-
not a brewer, because I think he's MIA on vacation. But
Okay.
we do have
Go
his
for that.
recipe details.
Nice.
So we can still do the beer.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back with whoever wants to hang out, and we'll be right back here on Dr. Homebrew. Stay with us. All right. Thanks for sticking around, everybody. We are back, and Mike, I believe, is the I should have checked before I opened the beer. Is the brewer who we're going to be drinking his beer today, and he is not here. He's on vacay. He's taking a little trip.
Good for him.
Yeah. So we're going to be hanging out, talking there. And Jason and Doug are here hanging out. And if you guys want to chime in, you're more than welcome to as well. But look, classic style, classic beer. Here we go. Shar, why don't you take us on, dude?
All right. So, Inland Empire Brewers. Why don't you guys give us the website one more time in case people didn't listen to the previous show? I think it was iebrewers.org.
Yeah, it's iebrewers.org. That's our website. Make sure you guys head on over, check us on out.
Yeah, especially if you're in the Inland Empire, Riverside area, San Bernardino, check these guys out. They're making great beer.
San Bernardino.
Yeah, they're cool folks, and definitely think about going to a meeting or two if you're down there. When one of the women in our homebrew club was told a story about going to the grocery store quick before going to our homebrew club meeting, and some guy in the line was trying to chat her up about whatever, and she's like, "Oh, I can't. I'm going to a meeting right now." And he says, "Yeah, I'm going to a meeting later too." And she said, "I think we're going to two totally different meetings."
What meeting is what meeting is he talking about?
Undoubtedly, the Friends of
He's
Bill or whatever the
friend of Bill W. Yeah.
exactly.
that?
So That's yeah, totally kind of a totally different meeting. But anyway, yeah, this
Has
I enjoyed
multiple
this beer. It was a
yeah.
bottle inspection. It was good fill, hiss on opening, aroma. Low aroma overall, low caramel, low woody hop aroma. Nothing off about it. Gave it 7 out of 12. Appearance. This is one. I'm going to come up on one on this because the previous one was again. I judged this last night. There was a low haze in the previous bottle for whatever reason, and this sample is 100% clear. I'm not seeing any haze here at all. It's not a hazy IPA, of course. It's
I get a little bit, yeah, but
maybe there's a bottle variation. These might be bottle conditioned. Again, I didn't check. It doesn't matter.
no.
But that might explain why some are a little hazier than others. But I'd given it a 2 on appearance for the haze. Large, persistent white head. I poured this sample a while back. Again, I'm not sure why I'm holding it up. You can't see. But it's persistent. It's nice. I like that. I'll come up to 3 based on this. On this.
There you go.
This
He's not even here to stare at you.
I know. Let's see. Flavor initially, the flavor's malt forward with low caramel. And the bitterness rises to a medium level in mid palate to almost balance. It's still, I think, overall a malt oriented beer. Finish is moderate in length and balanced, very well attenuated. There's a lot of flavor in this beer, but it's a very dry beer that I wish we had the brewer on hand to tell us something about the final gravity. It can be, as Jamil always says, what you perceive flavor wise can be different from what the final gravity actually is. But mouthfeel, flavor wise, to me, this comes across very well attenuated, low toasty character. It's very good. I think I give this a 13 out of 20. Mouthfeel, and again, I'm kind of adjusting on the fly here. So Cooper, this will change a little bit from what I texted you. Mouthfeel 5 out of 5. Body's medium. Carbonation's medium. No warming. It's not astringent. It's not creamy either. I'd call it perky with the way the carbonation is. The score sheet gives you the information that you need to make sure that you discuss, like creamy and astringent. And those are good descriptors, but a lot of beers are neither. An oatmeal stout is going to be creamy. Astringent is going to be an off flavor. So many beers, I mean, there's so many times, I'd say 90+% of the time, whatever we taste on this show is neither creamy nor astringent, and that's fine. So 5 out of 5 for mouthfeel. Overall impression 7 for a total of 35. This beer is clean. It's easy to drink. I like it. It's malt focused, but it is kind of lacking in the pronounced hop bitterness. I'd say the bitterness is decent. It's solid medium, but it really needs a little bit more bitterness to to balance out the malt here. Even though this is, I think of all the beers we had, this is maybe the most attenuated and maybe the least malty, if that makes sense. It's got a lot of malt flavor, but in terms of body or something, this one to me is the driest and most attenuated. So it doesn't necessarily need a lot of bitterness in addition to sort of balance, but a little more, maybe 10% more bitterness might be welcome. I think this is well made. There's no off aromas, no off flavors. Again, total is 35. I like it. And Mike, when you hear this, when you're back from vacation, I hope you enjoy your score.
All right.
Don't hunt me down. All right.
Please don't hunt me down.
Yeah. So I'll go through my, if that's okay. The bottle had a nice grease pen writing on it and appropriate label removal though. So, and yeah, good fill level. Nice. A very strong hiss upon opening. The beer, it gives off a medium high woody herbal floral note from the hops. Alongside that, a pleasant dark bread toastiness with just a hint of caramel malt. Clean kind of cold ale lager fermentation again, but as I smell it again, and this is a warmer than the one I judged last night, it seems a little fruitier than I might have had it before. Last night I was taking them out of the fridge like one before as I was judging the one I took out the next like 2 beers down the road that I'd be judging. So they'd all be relatively the same temperature. This time I just took everything out for this show at the same time. So this is a little warmer, and it's a warmer day, and it's not, 11:30 at night.
Close though.
But it has a dark bread toastiness. It does have an interesting kind of a dark fruit alongside with that, alongside the dark breadiness. And it's I don't know, the esters are kind of medium low, no DMS or diacetyl though, fairly a bold and big beer. It's pushing a lot of aroma because the appearance wise, it poured this massive fluffy looking beigeish head with some finer and some larger bubbles, but it just threw up a massive head at the start, and it sticks around quite well. So yeah, it's fairly clear, a deep amber, like copper colored beer. Nice rich color to it. And yeah, the head retention is just great. It just pushes up a lot of carbonation. It's easily roused. There's a lot in there, and impressive that he got it in the bottle with that much carbonation and kept it in there. Again, most people have the opposite problem.
True.
Flavor wise, it's pretty richly malty and also fairly hoppy. Close to an even balance. I think the malt might win just a little bit. But it's between there's a dark toast and this woody quality from the hop that plays nice together. The beer does finish pretty dry. I don't think it's to me, it's not as like bone dry as Brian seems to feel it was, but
yeah,
it's got not a real big sweetness to it, but you could say semi-dry and it wouldn't be off for me. It does also have kind of a mineral edge that might give you the impression of have it being drier than it is. It keeps it from.
That's a good point, and you may be right that it may be that mineral. There is, now that you say that, I'm wondering if what I'm perceiving as dryness is just maybe a little water treatment.
Maybe we have his notes here. We can look at that, see if there's a water treatment, how he did that. But yeah, it's again, this is another clean beer, cleanly fermented, no DMS or diacetyl. Hops and malt kind of linger in tandem in the aftertaste. I think it was also a 13 out of 20 for appearance there.
Nice.
Couldn't not give it 3 out of 3 for appearance. But yeah, flavor 13 out of 20. Mouthfeel wise, it's medium bodied with pretty high carbonation, not 100% like crazy high, but it's nicely carved, and that keeps the flavors up there too, without having a carbonic bite to it in the way. So not creamy or astringent or warming, and it shouldn't really be any of those things. It's a pretty well brewed Cal Common overall, with a lot going for it. Excuse me.
Are you good?
Yeah, actually, just perhaps a touch high for the style on some of these flavors coming through, but or the carbonation is pushing them a little more firmly. But yeah, it's very, very clean. Otherwise, no real issues going on. So yeah, I would say it's probably overly carbonated just by a little bit. It's medium high to high. You want to pull it, medium high to medium is where it should be. and maybe pulling back that mineral just a little bit, if that's what is making that, giving it that edge in the flavor. But yeah, some of them you can tell, like others are a little more smoothed out, and it is kind of an interesting beer with a rustic flavors, and it's I don't know, it'd be interesting to go back in time and taste what steam beer originally was, in the 1800s. It probably was a lot different than this.
Yeah.
I think this is probably a lot better.
Yeah, I would guess.
But when Anchor recreated it in the 70s, it was like, okay, well, this is San Francisco, a bit of San Francisco history. And it's kind of cool that they picked this beer for this competition.
Yeah.
So I gave a 7 out of 10 for overall, and landing on a 36 on this beer. So seems
Cool.
fair to me.
I kind of agree. I like the beer, and I think a lot of it is the carbonation, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. That does help.
A lot of the reason why I enjoy this beer is the carbonation level. I think it's pretty darn perfect. Anchor steam beer in general is kind of highly carbonated. It is kind of on the higher end, if I remember correctly. So I don't know. I kind of like it. I kind of like where it is. On that, it does have like a rich maltiness, and that's I want to hear his recipe, because it seems like a lot of the guys, Doug and Jason, a lot of guys in your club are feel like they're on the same wavelength of, like, there's a little, putting a little chocolate in there, a little little something extra just to kind of beef it up. It's just, I don't know, it's just interesting to like taste. I've never had 6 of the same beer like this before, and it's interesting, the sort of the common threads that you find. But let's hear his recipe.
Okay. Well, I've got it, unless one of the other guys wants to go through it.
Nah, go for it.
All right. So yeah, the fermentables, he used 8, and this is a oh boy, what size batch here? Batch size 5 gallons. Okay. 8 pounds of brewer's malt, 2-row, 8 ounces of Gold Swain red. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And 8 ounces of C60, 6 ounces of Munich, 4 ounces Black Swan honey biscuit, and 2 ounces Black Swan coffee 190L.
What the fuck?
Coffee malt.
You guys, is Jason, is Mike a weird dude? Like, what's going on? Well, I've never heard half of this shit.
Yeah, we got hooked up by one of the local maltsters with a bunch of the Gold Swan and Malt Europe stuff, and he happened to have some leftover, and he just used what he had on hand for this.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it works, but like there is, and maybe that honey malt sort of is giving off what I'm kind of like crystally sort of like it hangs around a little bit in your mouth. I mean, it's a good beer.
Yeah, there is C60 in Munich in it.
Well, yeah, that'll do it too.
But yeah, so, and the hops were Northern Brewer, Fermentus Safe lager yeasts, and came out at 5.4%.
I mean, for a beer, just using stuff you had on hand, it came out pretty good.
Yeah,
Have you had this?
I have, yeah. He's actually the one that we the club picked to go forward to represent our club.
Oh,
yeah.
When is the judging for the whole thing? When does that happen? Has it happened?
Yeah, that happened back in May, if I remember right. Yeah.
And who won?
For our club, it was him. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So,
well, shit.
And it was so blind, they actually set up tasters for all the beers, and then they had a station for all the members. They had an entire house just filled with beer, and then everyone went to their little station and did their tasters and filled out sheets. It was quite the experiment.
That sounds wild, man.
Yeah, the people didn't even see what the beer was actually poured out of. So because a lot of people bring growlers or bottles, yeah, no one saw anything. It's just you walk on in and there you go. There's your flight of tasters.
Well, I
Jeez.
think carbonation is definitely something that helps, because if you don't have a certain level of the carbonation and the beer falls flat and you're sitting around judging them for a while,
Right.
this thing just stays perky the whole time it's in the glass and all the way to the end, all the way down the glass.
Yeah.
Still has a head like that. So,
So
then it,
Mr. Dunn, I think he needs to do an educational coming up on how to keep carbonation in a bottled beer, because I want to know.
No, exactly right.
yeah, that'd be a
The
great
thing,
club.
you can't do too good, because then you're going to be voluntold to do something. Yeah, fine. Yeah, I thought it was a cool beer. Any more notes, Cooper? Or that's it, huh?
Well, he said his thoughts. He really enjoyed the beer for his palate and drinkability. The play of toast and maltiness has a nice complexity, and there's enough bitterness to create balance. I really try to make beers where the flavors, aroma, and mouthfeel are in balance and cohesive. I do think it is a little off for the style from what I remember about Anchor Steam. So
I think he's right. It's
Yes.
cool, but it's not. It is off a little bit.
he said to be closer to style, he would put a little more caramel and a little more bitterness and increase the 60-minute edition slightly.
More caramel? No.
I don't know.
What do you think of that? What do you think? More caramel? Yes? No?
And he said he would increase the C60 and decrease the biscuit. Although, which one is the biscuit? Oh, Black Swan honey biscuit. That's only 4 ounces though.
Yeah,
I'd kill it,
Honey is like, I always get rid of honey malt anytime we have a chance.
Yep.
Yes, just get rid of don't just decrease, get rid of the 4 ounces of honey biscuit.
Yeah.
And bump up, sure, add a little bit more C60. Why not?
I guess it's been a while. I guess I'm trying to remember, my filing cabinet from Anchor Steam, and like I guess it is a pretty like crystal-y beer, but the high carbonation and the fermentation esters really clean that up. So you
and it's why it doesn't travel so well. Is
yeah, that
caramel will oxidize in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And you've taken the Anchor tour and you've seen back when they were in business, and how they cool that beer. They kind of, that wort goes on like a thin sheet on like a big cylinder that's cold. So it's getting oxidized the whole way down that cylinder. And it's just, I don't know. If you're going to have caramel malt, you're going to have to deal with the consequences from oxidation. And if sure, why not bump up C60 some, see what happens.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Well, he fermented it warm at 65 degrees for 7 days and 70 for 3 days. So cold crashed.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if that's it, we're going to wrap it up. We good?
Well,
I think we're good.
We need to do some averaging and figure out who we like the best.
Well, how much time was that going to be?
Is doing some math. I want to thank Inland Empire Brewers for having all you guys on and for having all your beers. It was really a lot of fun, and it was great to chat with all of you and drink all your beers. You're brewing great beer. I think you're really helping each other out and learning and teaching each other, and that's one of the key functions of a homebrew club. You're doing fantastic. Again, thank you so much for being on the show and for sharing, and just keep up what you're doing. It's really working.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it.
Look forward to seeing you guys again next week.
What's that? Next week, yeah. I don't know if I can take it. Cooper.
Yeah. All right. Well, it was really, really close. Most of these averaged to the 35, 36, but just because I was a little nicer to Jason, he averaged up to a 37.25. So Jason gets the kudos for
Hey,
I just thought it was really
because you're on the show right this second either.
Take that,
right?
really smooth and drinkable, and I did enjoy that one a lot. And it was
I've been staring at you guys long enough that you're all giving me extra points now.
More points. 49.5.
If you want to come on and stare at us for extra points, email Brian at thebrewer.com. He'll get you on the show, and we'll drink beers, and it'll be great. You don't even have to blink. It'll be awesome. It'll be fun. It'll be a good time for everybody involved.
Ryan with an I at thebrewingnetwork.com.
That's right. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in. And until next time, we'll see you.